Now we have all these incredible things that are happening in our cities, right? I talked about Portland. In Portland, they have been rioting literally for 6 weeks. Trump has sent in federal troops to defend federal buildings, okay? It's sent in federal troops to defend federal buildings. One protester saw a tear gas canister come at him, kicked it back toward the police, toward the federal police. And the next one, I don't know if it was a canister or some kind of canister, smacked the guy in the head, and he had to go to the hospital. And that became the problem. That became the scandal. So here is Ted Wheeler, the mayor of Portland, and the governor of the state. Here's their reaction to this, and they're attacking Trump. They're attacking Trump and the federal government and saying the federal troops need to go.
I want to make it very clear so that there's no confusion. The serious injuries sustained by Donovan Labella at the hands of a federal officer were unacceptable.
I don't believe that President Trump ordering troops to the streets in Portland is the solution to the challenges we're facing, and I would ask Portlanders to not take the bait.
So the problem is Trump, right? And remember, these federal troops are in there defending federal buildings that the Portland police are not defending. That's why they're there. And they're saying, oh, get these people out of here. So here's Trump's response at this thing about MS-13, at this press conference with Barr about MS-13. Here's what Trump had to say about what's coming down the pike next week. We don't have details, but this is obviously going to be a linchpin of his campaign.
They've been run very poorly, these cities, whether it's Seattle, where we were getting ready to go in and they decided to go in, and that's good. Minneapolis, where we had the National Guard go in, and as soon as they did that, we straightened that mess out. They should have been able to do it locally with their police. Their police are good. They were told not to do anything. Or many other cases. We're doing a great job in Portland. Portland was very rough, and they called us in, and we did a good job, to put it mildly. Many people in jail right now. But we have other cities that are out of control. They're like war zones. And if the city isn't going to straighten it out, if local politicians, all in this case, I don't say this for political reasons, they're all Democrats. They're liberal, left-wing Democrats. And it's almost like they think this is going to be this way forever.
It is like that. It is like that. And they think, and they really, I mean, they think that this is somehow acceptable from people who were elected to run the city. These protesters weren't elected to run the city. This thing about mostly peaceful violence, the mostly peaceful violence that's been going on, really reminds me of a guy says, well, we have a mostly peaceful marriage. I only beat my wife, once or twice a year. So it's mostly peaceful. It's mostly peaceful. I mean, it's ridiculous, right? Violence wipes out everything else. It wipes out all the peaceful. It wipes out everything else, and they're holding the city hostage. So Brian Williams on MSNBC, the disgraced guy who is now his punishment for his disgrace. They didn't know how badly to punish him. So at first they fired him. They thought, no, that's not disgracing him enough. A guy who lies as much as Brian Williams has really needs to be disgraced. So they put him on MSNBC. And what he did was he ran clips of George Wallace, the famous racist governor, Democrat. He ran clips of George Wallace saying law and order, and then played them with Trump saying law and order, as if law and order were inherently racist. Now, this is the thing that they have been pushing. The left has been pushing this since the 60s, but it didn't used to be the news media. See, it didn't used to be governors. It didn't used to be mayors pushing this. And this is why I think it's fair to ask the question. In the 60s, when Richard Nixon ran on law and order, he won by a landslide the second time. He won huge, and the press had to come up with Watergate basically to get rid of him. But the question is now, has this pollution, this cultural pollution that I've been complaining about and yelling about for all these years, has this so affected the American mind that they are willing to sit and let this happen? Here's Trump's ad about Biden and what he's doing about the police.
The radical left-wing mob's agenda? Take over our cities, defund the police, pressure more towns to follow, and Joe Biden stands with them. Cutting police funding.
Yes, absolutely.
Eliminating cash bail, letting criminals back on the street, violent crime exploding, innocent children fatally shot. Who will be there to answer the call when your children aren't safe?
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
That's going to be the campaign, I think. And we're going to see whether or not this resonates with a nation that has been taught for 60 years to despise itself on racial grounds.